Well, I think I would always start with you've got to have that fundamental foundational commitment in a marriage. And I think that's probably where a lot of young people are falling down today, because they're coming in with that whole mindset of, if it doesn't work, well, there's an escape hatch, we can get out. And nobody wants to enter into marriage like that. We have to have that commitment that we're in this together forever, no matter what. And we find that couples that have that commitment do better in marriage, because obviously when you come across a problem, we have the attitude, and other people have an attitude when they're together forever, that we are making ourselves miserable, so therefore we need to sort this out so we can enjoy a marriage. So commitment is foundational.
Happy marriages aren't conflict-free marriages. In fact, many happy marriages have a lot of arguments and a lot of tension, but there's something underlying it that enables them to work through those issues and come out the other side. Probably another thing, honey, would be deep friendship. That couples that enjoy good marriages have deep level of friendship. They have an interest in each other's likes and dislikes and the things that make them tick. They go out of their way to please one another. And probably the third thing would be a deep meaning. Couples that enjoy great marriages have a deep sense of meaning in their relationship. That might be things like traditions or cultures, things they've developed. They're a part of their own little mini culture in their family, but they're inherent in their relationship are deeper values that they adhere to. It may be spirituality, but it may just be other things like legacy that's been passed on through their grandmother, or all sorts of things that are unique to their relationship.
That faith aspect, and well, from your guys' point of view, of course, from a Christian point of view, how essential do you feel that is in happily ever after?
Wow. Well, that's what we teach. And I think what happens is when we talk about the bigger picture, the perspective of God's plan and God's purpose, we talk about God's love and what does God's love look like, then people kind of go, wow, I'd never appreciated the depth of what marriage really means. It's not just about companionship, but there's this incredible spiritual backbone that's part of marriage. The Bible is about marriage. You know, Genesis, it begins with a marriage right through to Revelation, and Christ being the bridegroom of the church. All that is an amazing metaphor for marriage, and is deeply seated in our relationship as men and women. So yeah, there's a powerful element to that, and when people come along and hear that for the first time, there's a wow factor to it.
And we have a lot of people that come to our weekend conferences and our one-day seminars who don't have a faith. And of course you can have a strong marriage without it, no doubt about that. But we always say to them at the end of it that God was the one that created marriage. And so to experience marriage in all its fullness, with all its benefits, how God intended it, then you do need that component of God in your relationship. And it's that whole, goes back to Ecclesiastes, chapter 4, verses 9 and 10. At the end there it says, a cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. Well, of course, God is that third strand that holds a husband and a wife together. And we've experienced it, and countless other couples that we know have experienced that, having your relationship with God as the foundational part of your marriage just takes it to a whole new level. So yes, it's huge.
Let's flip that one around. What do you see, and from your experience, what have you seen to be the marriage killers? What are the things that are causing people to walk away from supposed lifelong commitments?
That's a good question. A lot of times today we have seen a lot of selfishness. People come in thinking that I'm coming into marriage to have my needs met. They have this expectation of what marriage will look like, and of course they get into this marriage relationship and it's not what they thought at all. And so all of a sudden this person that they thought were going to meet their needs and were going to provide this wonderful environment that they thought that they would flourish in this marriage relationship, when it's not like that, they decide, I'm out of here. Because as Andy said before, today they come in thinking it's about my happiness. And so they give up far too quickly because they don't realise that marriage is so much more than that.
I also think there's a limited knowledge or understanding of what marriage really is. I think they come in with a lot of myths or lies that maybe the world has kind of sold them, and so they come in thinking that their love will just grow. As they get married, their love will just continue to grow. In fact, what naturally happens is we tend to naturally grow apart. And so if we don't make regular commitments to enhance our friendship and our meaning and spending time with one another in a purposeful way, we just naturally drift apart. It's called the marriage drift. It's a very popular concept. And so couples just get married thinking that they're going to, it's just going to be a wonderful, we get married and we live happily ever after. Yep. But that's not the truth. And so if we don't engage purposefully in our marriage relationship, we will naturally drift apart. Other things get our attention, like our work or our interests in sport, or even good things like helping with activities outside the marriage, even involved in church work or community things, good things, can actually take us away from that most important aspect of marriage, our relationship. Even children
That's a big one.
They rob us of our best. And so, what can happen is traditionally, say the husband is off at work every day, gets caught up in doing a good thing and providing for his family, but then gets taken away so much from the home that the wife feels neglected and isolated.
I think that's actually a really good point, because that is what happens. You go into courtship and all this effort and creativity is put into this relationship. Then you get married, and as Andy said, they just then kind of go, and
the battle's over.
Yeah,
we
won
got
won my bride, I'm off to work, she's at home, and they then stop competing for one another, for each other's affections, and often then they just settle into this mediocrity, and they then obviously can take one another for granted and not putting that effort in and not being proactive. And anything that is worth something takes effort, and we need to value it.
Yeah, marriage no longer becomes the priority, and other things become a priority. Before you know it, I'm spending more time away with other people or away with other things rather than with one another. And we can get a little bit bored with one another. Life becomes routine after a while, and we lose the magic that we had when we first met. That romantic feeling goes, and so love takes on a whole new concept. And I guess people just want change, or want whatever they had at the beginning back again, and it's not unlikely to be found. It needs to be replaced with something else, which is this deeper love, this genuine love that the Bible talks about.
For people that are perhaps watching this and thinking about marriage, what would you say to encourage them to take that step, to say that actually, despite all of the stories and despite the way things seem to be going, perhaps even despite examples from their own family, this is something which is worth it?
Oh, I came from a background where there was many broken marriages, and I lived in foster homes and had not had a good example to follow. So didn't want to get married as a young person. But of course I became a Christian and my whole perspective on life changed, and then God brought Andy into my life. And I would say to them, marriage is so much more than you could imagine. Yes, it takes hard work, it takes commitment, but it is the most fulfilling and rewarding journey I've ever taken. And I think the thing that I thank God for and I thank Andy for is that I came into marriage a completely different person than I am today. Andy has not only completed me, but I think he has enabled me to become all that God has wanted me to be. I've still got a long way to go, but he has been part of that process of completing me as a person and encouraging me to be all that I can be. And I am a stronger person through Andy's encouragement, through what we've been through together. I see life in a whole new perspective, and yeah, it's just been incredibly rewarding and fulfilling. And so I would encourage people to, but work at it, make it a good relationship, make it a fulfilling relationship.